Hi and welcome back to my channel. After I finished my building the box of the Tonic Craft Kit number 40, I just dove right into creating a mini album. It was getting a little bit late in the night, so I didn't record it, but I'll show you how far I've gotten so far. So this is an album that I think I'm just gonna make for myself actually. Most of the time I make things for other people as gifts, but I guess this is gonna be just like a little gift to myself. So my thought is to create myself a little swatch book. I've just gotten into, like, literally this is my first attempt at gel printing. So yeah, a fun little swatch book, and using just two of the dies that actually the main two box dies that come in this kit. So let me talk you through what I did. It's really super simple, and then I'm gonna actually make a page and then actually show you how I make the cover for it as well. And the other thing is, I randomly found a piece of heavyweight chipboard that's just left over from album making, and it was exactly the right size. So that's sort of my back cover. I haven't decided whether I'm actually going to glue it down to my spine piece. So that's to be determined. But I have another piece of heavyweight chipboard that I'm going to use for my front cover, and I'll show you how I get the holes and everything in that. So the two dies that I used are the die that cuts the main portion of the box, the body of the box. Those are going to be my pages, and then the box top and bottom, like the lid and the bottom, I used that die, and that is my spine. And it's thick. I mean, it's gonna end up, I think this is like just shy of 1 3/4 of an inch, and I've only filled, I think I counted, this is 15 pages, and I could probably fit, at least 3 times as many pages in here. So by the time this is like all done, I'm gonna have a lot of little swatches. But that's why I decided on this binding, because it's easy to undo this, and I'll show you in a second, because we're going to make a cover and I'm going to make some more pages to put in. But you can always undo it and then add more, change the order of things. So that's a really convenient way to just start a book where your intention is to continue to add to it. So okay, so then I did have to use a couple of other things, but if you don't have them, you don't necessarily need them. I also used this set. It's one of the half cut die sets, and I think this is a relatively newish release, but it goes with the album that has those inverted corners, rounded corners. And the only die that I used out of this, and I may as well pull it out now since I'll be using it to show you. I used these little dies, and if you have, I think the other half cut memory book die set, the one that's with the regular rounded corners, the half book pages for that, it also has a set of these. So those are the 3 dies that I used, and basically the pages, the album pages, are from this score line here all the way to the other end. So what you could do is die cut that, and then you'd have like that nice professional edge that die cutting gives you. But I once I did that a couple times, I decided that I'll just cut the rest on my guillotine, because it's just going to be faster for me. I can cut multiple sheets, and it is just a rectangle at the end of the day. So I don't know if it's necessarily more or less work, because you do have to do the guillotine cut and score your own line, whereas the die will score the line for you. So I guess it's just what you prefer to do. So those are going to be my pages, and let me give you the dimensions if you were to use your guillotine like I ended up doing. For me, it was just faster. So I'm going to bring my guillotine over, and I am going to bring a sheet of paper over. So the page itself, you'll be able to fit or cut 4 of them from one sheet of 8.5 by 11. So I make my first cut at 3.5. So 3.5 is going to get you the height of your page. So that's 3.5. Okay, so 2 strips of 3.5, and then this guillotine actually can do like I think 10 sheets. And in terms of paperweight, I'm just using 65 pound, so nothing too heavyweight. And I go 5 1/8. So 5 and sorry, that keeps bumping into my mic. 5 1/8. All right. So there you have your 4 sheets, and let me make a couple more because as you could see, there's still like a lot of room to grow. So I'll just do 2 sheets at a time. So you can see why for me this is just a faster way of approaching this, especially since I am making a thick album with a lot of pages. So 3.5 all the way down, and I could probably do more than 2 sheets. I know my guillotine would be able to handle it. I just don't know if I can hold all of the pages tightly down so that it doesn't start to get a little bit off. So 3.5, and go back the other way. Let's see if I can do 4, 5, and 1/8. And I use this guillotine to cut my heavyweight chipboard too. So so I know that it can cut the thickness. It's just more a matter of being able to hold everything so that the paper doesn't slide. But that cut through just fine. Okay, so I've got all of my pages, and then the cover piece you'll want to cut, I guess just depending on if you want your cover to be flush with the sides of the pages, or if you want it slightly larger or not. But this is just 3.5 by 3.5, so it's going to be the same size of the pages once this is folded down. So the next thing that we need to do is a little bit of, let me put this on my book so I don't lose it. Okay, so I've got all my pages. Now I'm going to do some scoring, and I won't score this whole stack. This part is a little bit, I wouldn't say finicky, but if you're gonna match what the die does, then what I have found is that I need to kind of nudge this out just a little bit, like definitely not all the way to 1/8. So I have it flush at the top and flush to the left, so it's right in the corner, but I'm gonna push it out to the right just a smidge because the width of what is technically the sides of your box, it's actually just shy of 1 3/4 of an inch. So if you're going to match that, you want to push this out a little. And you could, I guess, also score at 3.5, but that for whatever reason doesn't quite line up, because I think of just how things, that extra room of the fold. I have found that I just push this out a little, like maybe a 1/16 of an inch, and then I score at 1 3/4. And if you fold that down, then let's see, then it does match and this is the page that was die cut, so you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see that like professional die cut edge. So these pages now match up with a page that's been die cut. So I'll walk through that again. So flush the way you would score a normal, and then just scooch it to the right a little bit and score at 1 3/4 of an inch. So I'll do the rest and then come back for the next step. Okay, so now I'm back. I have folded and scored and folded all of the pages that I just cut, and now what I want to do is give myself some lines so that I know where to line up my die that's gonna cut the little, in this case these are circles, that my binding is going to go through, because I want them to more or less all be in the same location. That way, once all the pages are in, they're going to be kind of more or less flush with each other. Likely they're going to be a little bit off, but this is sort of a loosey-goosey binding system anyways, so there's a lot of forgiveness there. So the dimensions that I just worked out for myself happen to be, if you want to follow along with this exact design, is I take this folded edge is going to be the spine. So I go 1/4 of an inch in and give myself a little tick mark. And when I'm doing this sort of in batch mode, what I'll do is do all of my die cutting, all of my scoring, then all of my folding. And it goes by a lot faster if you do it sort of assembly line like that, because you're doing the same thing, just repeat it over and over again. You don't have to think about what you're doing until you're moving on to the next step. So as opposed to you do one full page and then you start from the next and you do all the steps sequentially that way. So I would go through and put this 1/4 inch mark on, or 1/4 of an inch little tick mark on all of my pages. I've done all of the other ones already, and I left 2 to do on camera. So then what I do is using my T-square ruler, which I love for this because that way you know you're going to get nice straight kind of 90-degree lines. I just line that up against the edge and then draw a line all the way down. And then while I'm here, I give myself another tick mark from the top, and it's going to be at 5/8 of an inch. And I'll explain how I arrived at that. It was mostly trial and error, but I can show you what I did. So 1/4 of an inch line all the way down, a tick mark at 5 1/8 from the top. Now, that's ultimately going to be the bottom of our page, but as long as you're consistent, that's what matters, because then all of your pages are going to line up. And so then, how did I arrive at these numbers? Well, the 1/4 of an inch just looked, for me, it just looked right. I didn't want it too close to the fold, because then maybe it can easily tear out, and I didn't want it so far out that I didn't have enough room to write or that it would look weird. So you can decide for yourself how or where you want to position that. Totally up to you. Then with this one, again, something personal preference, you can decide for yourself, but I debated whether I wanted the holes to go all the way, from the bottom to the top. But I decided I don't think it really needs it, but it felt like just having the 5 circles wasn't enough when I did my first trial run at this. And so I just decided to make a little bit of extra work for myself and die cut this twice. So I die cut it once to get 5, and then I slotted it back in and die cut it again to get 6. So knowing that's what I wanted, I just took a scrap piece where I did that test die cut, and then I tried to center it as best I could on this page, and that's how I arrived at the 5/8 tick mark, because that's where I'm actually going to line up my die. So what I'm going to do is give myself, get a little bit of, this is just painter's tape. I'm going to take a little bit of stick off of it. And so what I'm going to do is line up, and this is where I'm going to line up the edge of my die. I mean, the cutting lines aren't there, but visually it's these markings are so I know where to line up the left edge and where to line up the bottom edge of my die. That way, every page that I cut is going to be more or less the same. It might be a little bit different, but if it's off, it's going to be off by a very negligible amount. And then I'll take that to my die cutting machine. So let's bring that up and show you how to do the die cutting. So first time through, so what I do is I just line this up and I just run it far enough to cut and then back. Not because it needs to be cut twice, but just so that you don't have to really run the full plate over it. So I'll pull that back, put the die right back into the holes, but offset it by 1 so that it's snugly in these 4 holes, and it's just gonna cut 1 additional hole at the very top. So there we have our page. So I'll do that one more time. Just, where's my other, oh, here it is. So take my die, and where my pencil marks are, the one that goes all the way down, that's going to be the left edge of my die. The 5/8 tick mark, that's going to be the bottom of my die. So I'm just going to line it up. And this way, your holes are going to be straight. That's why I drew the full line. Your holes are going to be straight. They're going to begin and end roughly at the same place. And so when you string your binding through the all the pages, your pages will ultimately line up. But like I said, these holes are big enough to where they are, there's just a lot. And and the twine, I did use the twine that they gave us in the kit, which I thought was really nice, because it's a nice neutral gray, so I thought that worked well. Then if you're following along with mine, or even if you decided you do like the look of the circles going all the way down, you could start lower, and then if you're gonna have to do a second die cut anyways, right, then you can you could probably get 1 more hole below this. So if we lined it up, yeah, you could easily get 1 more hole below this, and you could get 2 more above it. So you could still do, it would still be 2 die passes through the die cutting machine, but I'm doing a second pass just for 1 hole. So but that's only because that's the aesthetic that I like, right? So you do what you like, and that's the fun part of like using these dies in different ways, because then we get to decide what we like and the aesthetic that we want for our albums. So so there's my binding. So I'm gonna go through, do the rest of the die cutting, and then join you back here for the next step. Okay, so all of my pages have been die cut, and you can see I'm gonna just kind of stack them. They're off by like a smidge, but not a ton. So if you look, stack them all up. If you look through, they're not all perfect. Let's see if I can get an angle. You should still be able to see white through all of them essentially. So there's gonna be some portion, there's a line that goes straight through all of the pages, and that's essentially what you want. Like I said, there's a lot of wiggle room with this binding system. So let me show you how to do this if you don't have a die that's going to cut these for you. So I actually have my cover piece ready, and this is just a piece that I cut a little smidge out of a panel that I did some alcohol ink. I was just playing around with some alcohol inks, and when I do these, I haven't yet incorporated them into cards, but my gel printing and some of my alcohol ink stuff, I haven't played with too much, but I want to do more of it. And it's more just an activity for me to do for myself. And if I make anything that looks nice enough to incorporate onto a card or an album or some other maybe home decor projects, then I'll go ahead and do that. But I don't have any specific goal when I sit down and just play. And that's part of why I'm doing it. It's just so that I can have some time to just be creative, have fun, and not come in with a plan, but instead just come in wanting to just have some fun. So this is heavyweight chipboard. It's that Yupo paper that I've just glued to it. And I'm gonna need to put some holes into this in order to include it in my book. So what I do is, and you could do the same process for your pages, make yourself a template, and if you have a hole punch of any sort, this is the one that I have, and the way this one works is it has this wheel, and you can turn it to get different size holes. So there's 6 different spokes, I guess, and each one has a slightly different size hole that it can punch out. And I've already sort of determined that this is the size hole that's going to fit or match with what the die produces. Because I did use the die on all of my pages, I just want to replicate that for my cover. So what I do is, so what you would do is just make yourself a little template that you can use, and then for all future pages or for your cover, then you can just line it up. This is slightly larger than my pages, so I'm going to line it up on the edge that I want to be on the inside. Which edge do I want to be on the inside? Boy, I don't know. Maybe this. Well, I kind of like this, and then once you open it, you get that surprise of the blue. Yeah. So I want this to be my spine. So I'm going to line up my page, which I'm using as my template. And what I'm going to do, since this is heavyweight chipboard, is I'm just going to go through each of my existing holes and punch it down enough to give myself a little indentation. Not trying to punch all the way through, just trying to punch it through enough to have something to line up against. So now I can take my template off. I don't have to worry about the applying pressure and holding everything straight, because now let's see, can you see it on the camera? I don't know if I can get this at an angle where you can see it, but what I just did, it basically just made some marks on like a slight indentation on my chipboard. Now I can use 2 hands and actually I don't have to use one hand to hold everything in place. I just need to put my hole punch into that indentation that I made and use two hands to punch the hole. So there you go. And of course you can do that with your any pages. So I left one page. So if you're doing this for your pages, just line, and this might even result in even more precise alignment. Just line that up, and then this is lighter weight, so it should just go through no problem. This I am just punching through because it's lighter weight. I think this is going through in one go. I'll double check. So I guess it just depends on what you have in your craft room. If you have the die, that lines up perfectly. So if you have the die, if you have a hole punch, or maybe you have one of those weird memory keeper binding systems that will actually cut out all of this in one go for you. So, you know, look in your craft room for what you have, and hopefully you have something that will punch out. It doesn't have to be round circles, it could be whatever shape, because the other dies in that I showed you in those memory book die sets, there are a variety of different shapes. So they the one that came in this set, there was a circle and a diamond. The other one had, I think, a heart and something else. So okay, so now let me show you. And you know, all these bits that come out, you could save this to be confetti and shaker fill if you wanted. I tossed mine, but you could keep it. So to add pages, you just need to take your existing binding out, and then you'll just have to restring it. But it's really easy. Just kind of line it up and pull it out. And when you hear a little bit of that scratching resistance, it's actually because I have some just regular transparent, like, little Scotch tape at the end, and that sort of is, you know, like on your shoelaces you have that little bit of plastic at the end. It's just so that you can thread this through these holes a lot easier without the ends of your twine fraying. And when it's frayed, it's a little bit harder to push through the holes, but when you have this nice kind of stiff end, you can get it through multiple pages really easily. So now everything's loose, so I can reorder things, I can take something out if I ultimately felt like I didn't want it. And you could, I don't know if I want to do this, but I might look for more scraps, because I could use these thicker chipboard pieces as dividers if I wanted different sections, and then I could put like a little tab at the end of the heavyweight chipboard. And let's say I wanted to have a section for my gel prints, one section for my alcohol ink backgrounds, a section for actual swatches, like color swatches of my color pencils, or gelatos, or gouache paints, or my acrylic paints. So I don't really know, but that's the beauty of this binding system, is that you can make those decisions at any point and then change it accordingly. Oh, what did I just do? So so this is my chipboard. I'm gonna make that my back cover, and that's part of the reason why I haven't glued my back cover to my spine, because you can do that. That way your spine and then your cover and this decorative panel of the spine are all one piece. But the way I'm binding this, it's more like these are just pages, other like super thick pages in my book. So okay, so now you can do this binding however you like, and play around with different styles as well if you wanted. But I'm just gonna start from one end, and I start from the back. I don't know. It's just start wherever you like to start. Then I pull it through, mostly through, and then just start threading your pages through. So I'll get one and then pick up a stack, and here's where, you know, having that little bit of Scotch tape, see how I can just wiggle that through the entire, a nice healthy stack of this. I'm not binding one page at a time, that would definitely take forever, but you just go through like that till you come out the other end. That's our front cover. So then you can decide, I'm not a pro at this binding style, so I don't know too many fancy techniques or kind of different looks that you can get, but I mean, you could definitely just go down and then through and kind of stitch that way, but I kind of like seeing the twine go across the spine. So I started here, I went in from this end, went through all my pages on my cover, out the other end, and then I'm actually just gonna pull this across to the side that I started, and then go in from that end again. See? And then I'm just gonna do the same thing as before. I'm gonna go through my heavyweight chipboard and grab a nice stack. You're basically always going into the pages from the in my case, the back of the book. So always out of the front, across the spine, and back in through the back cover. So let me finish binding this, and then I'll come back so that you can see how I tie it up. Okay, so I've completed the binding, and oh, let me back up one step. So let me show you. We started back here, back of our book, and just went through, looped around the spine, pulled through, looped around the spine, and then the last hole we come out on the front. Now I want to tie these together. There's a lot of different ways I'm sure that you could do this, but the way I'm choosing to do it for now, and what's nice is, you know, you can undo it all whenever you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back to the back side, right across the spine, and I'm going to go in to my spine piece. Now at least both ends are on the back side, they're on the same side now, but I want to bring them together. So I guess you could just tie it and then that would be a look, but I'm just gonna thread it from behind. So that just, because it was on the back already, I'm just gonna come back from behind. And if you want to do any adjustment, like you want to kind of leave a little bit of slack so that you can turn the pages easily and everything lays flat, you can kind of make those adjustments now. The more slack you have, the more your pages will, I'll show you in a second, lay flat. But now that everything's together, I'm gonna give myself just an easy, loose knot. I don't need it to look pretty because it's on the back side. That's one reason for knotting this on the back. But also, I don't want it to be super tight because I know I'm gonna need to add more pages to it. So I want it to be a knot that I can undo really easily. So that's all I've done there. And then while I'm at it, let me show you how I put tape on here, just if you're curious, because the other end doesn't have it right now. So this is just a plain roll of kind of your transparent Scotch tape. Tear off a section, and then what I do is I just bring it to the top, just lay it in there. See? I don't know if that helps. Then I will fold the small flap down. And now my twine is in there. Now I can kind of pinch this and just roll it sort of, you know, as tightly as I can manage, right? And once you get it going, you can just kind of roll it between your fingers. And that's it. You know, pretty much have like one of those little plastic caps on your shoelace. So now both ends are have that, so I can easily just pick either end whenever I do add more pages. So we added another maybe 12 pages, was it? I think. So loosely, it doesn't quite fill out my book, but it doesn't look quite as empty as it did when we started. But if I really pinched it down, you know, it takes up about half the spine. But I think realistically, I'd probably be able to fit maybe another set of 12 pages, and or probably more really. But the more loose your binding is, the more you'll be able to kind of lay this out flat, because there'll be more slack and more room for your pages to kind of flip. And also the other thing that's going to determine that is like how closely you put your holes to the spine or to that folded edge. So because there's, in my case, a 1/4 inch that is wiggling around in there. The thinner that space is, the less room you need to kind of between each page to have it lay flat. So like I can't actually fold this all the way flat right now. There's just not enough slack in the twine the way that I've got it to lay it completely flat. But my pages can get pretty darn close, so I can really, you know, see most of the page even when this little folded flap is open. So that's my little swatch book mini album, and it'll be like a little bit less kind of loosey-goosey once more pages are in there, and if you bind it a little bit more tightly. But that's basically, I think, how I'm gonna leave it. I don't think I'm gonna put glue this down to this piece because I want to be able to see this cover piece, and I may go in with either maybe like I do have lightweight chipboard, so I might go in with lightweight chipboard as dividers to add some sections, or maybe a set of different color pages. Maybe I'll do a set of white pages. I don't know. Sky's the limit really, but I think it's a nice size for something like this where it's a swatch book. If you were to use this for photos though, you could, if you have one of those Instax mini cameras, probably fit those. So here's a 2x3 that fits on here pretty well, and then here's I think 2x3, is that standard for wallet sizes? I don't know. 2.5 by 3.5 would fit, and actually would be kind of nice. It does fill top to bottom completely, but then you get a nice, you know, border on both sides. Let's say we have one of our black pages here. So see that? So it'll fit exactly all the way to the top and bottom, but you just get a little bit of a nice border on the sides. So that could be like a nice look. And then the Instax Mini, I don't have one, but I made myself a template because when I make albums for other people, I know other people do have these cameras. That's gonna fit on here too. And that's not just the area that the photo comes out, that's like the full, I think that's the full thing print that comes out. So that fits on here really nicely too. And you could do the same thing where you leave the little half page flap here so that folks can put their photo down and then just write a little caption for the photo. So I think this does definitely work for little mini albums. So until my next video, I hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. Happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.